The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to your live update and charts of today for Monday. I hope you're doing well. I hope you had a great weekend. Thanks for popping in, both to you guys who are watching this on GoToWebinar, and of course, those of you on YouTube who are either watching it live or playing catch up later. Thank you very much for popping in. I hope you get some useful tips and tricks about what might be happening during the course of the week. And of course, let's see if we can find a chart or two to look at. Now, of course, as we start, just a reminder to do the right thing. This video is delivered for educational purposes only. Please remember to do your own due diligence on anything you see here. Make sure you follow trading plans. Make sure that you manage risk on every trading action, both consistent with your own personal trading objectives and financial situation. Thank you to those who have already said hello in the chat box. Really very appreciated, as always. Good day to Mark. Hi to Hugh and to Wayne, and thanks guys for the heads up on the AV. I really appreciate that. Let's get into the headlines today. Of course, we saw an increasing buying pressure coming in at the coming in towards the back end of the session. Even though it was a shortened one on Friday. Of course, we had the whole shortened week because of Thanksgiving Day, but we did have a good week at the office. Good retail earnings, increased hope again of a rate cut from the Fed. We've got a big data week this week. We've got US inflation and jobs data coming out. We'll talk about a little later, and of course, markets will be asking the questions: are we up for a Santa Claus rally or not? And much may depend on what happens over the wires as that data comes through during the course of the week. We'll have a quick look at what's due. US futures are lower today. Whoops. Apologies. Let me just sort that out for you. There we go. There we go. That's a very good presentation. Let's have a look at. US futures are lower today. Asian markets are really struggling to make gains. Certainly, obviously, as a little bit of a side issue, obviously, our thoughts go out to all those that are impacted in Hong Kong by the dreadful events over the last few days. It's markets and markets, but the human tragedy of anything like that is obviously very, very significant. That sort of things into perspective, isn't it, really? The SX is down about 0.3%. We'll have a closer look in a moment. The European futures are pointing to a cautious open. US dollar index continues to look weak on Fed expectations, almost a double top form on the US dollar index futures. We'll check out a chart in a moment. And gold looks good again. We did talk when we met last week about gold potentially coiling for a move to the upside, and indeed it did that throughout the course of last week. Copper's also smashed resistance to hit 4-month highs, and oil is even looking less dreadful. It's holding the range after a bounce off support during the course of last week. Bitcoin is very weak in Asia as sellers retake control. We'll have a look at a chart of that. It's really interesting. I haven't found a catalyst for that, but it's an interesting chart to have a look at, and we will do so. So we have got a chunk of global PMI coming out today from all corners of the planet. Obviously, manufacturing data is thought to be slightly more important than service data. So that'll be the one that is relied on. The Chinese data is already out. It's still in contraction for the 8th straight month, but it is slightly less contraction than was before. So it is moving in the right direction, albeit really slowly. Later on, we've got US jobs. PCE data due. The Fed, of course, is due to meet next week and make its rate decision for December. And let's just quickly check in on that. Actually, I might just quickly do that. So you see there, it's been a real roller coaster of a ride. But at this stage, we are expecting, well, it's almost priced in now that unless there's a dramatic alteration in either the PCE or the jobs data, it's virtually ticked off that there's going to be a rate cut in December, which is one of the reasons markets have rallied. However, if we look to January, there's only about 25% that will do a rate cut again if they cut in December. So it'll be this that the market's looking at in terms of that data. If it comes in particularly soft, we may see that move higher. Of course, there's plenty of time till the end of Jan. Lots of things to worry about and enjoy before then, of course. We did say that we'll just see obviously a shortened day on Friday, but you can see there the rally continued into Friday. Not so much today, though. A little bit of a give back. European futures looking a little grumpy. Got buying coming into gold, into oil, into copper. And you can see there that yen is the strongest currency at this stage, on a little bit of US dollar weakness. As for Asia, the Nikkei is looking really the yen's strong because the Japanese CPI was hotter than expected. That's why we're seeing the Nikkei down. That's why we're seeing the yen up. ASX is bimbling around there. Hang Seng is about 1/3% to the upside, so a little bit mixed. Talking of data, let's have a look at it. Interesting. The Bank of Governor manufacturing PMI due. Some more manufacturing PMI due data out of China in 5 minutes. What's the BOJ governor speaking? I wonder if it'll undoubtedly reference the higher than expected inflation, but yeah, be sort of interesting. If we look further on in the week, we've got CPI numbers. CPI numbers coming out. Oh, we've got Fed Chairman Powell speaking tonight, actually. Where's he speaking? Okay. Stanford University speech. Okay, so Wednesday is GDP day in Australia. It's not likely, unless that's a fall off the cliff number, it's not likely to influence at all the fact that the RBA are going to pause. Then we move into jobs data on Wednesday evening with the ADP number. Some services PMI number later in the week. Well, Thursday's weekly jobs, and then Friday's personal spending. There's that core PCE price index. That's going to be really important going forward. So that's the week ahead from a jobs point of view. The week ahead from a key events. Let's check out some charts, shall we? Let's look at Bitcoin. Here's Bitcoin on a daily chart. Not sure what's going on in Asia. We had a good week last week, but that's all been given away and then some. Look at the hourly chart. You can see that in the first 2 hours of the Asian session is very hot. If you're short, looks as though some temporary support forming, not surprisingly, at previous level, around about this 86,831. Put this into context in a daily chart. Reach of that, wouldn't surprise me to see a retest again of this low. Interesting in Bitcoin for sure. Is the Nasdaq looking a bit perky? So it's gained a little over about 60% of what it lost in that correction already. A bit shy today, as I've already referenced. You can see there risk on assets. What is going on? Risk on assets looking a little bit shy. Let me just go back to Forex Factory and see if there's anything. Yeah, we know that that's really quite important. Nothing really that I can see that's doing it. Anyway, here's what it is. Let's just quickly have a look at Reuters and see if there's. Yeah, we know that. Nothing there at all. A mystery. Anyway, it is what it is. We trade what we see. S&P 500. Let's just put that on because the S&P 500 is only a stone throw away from record highs. Really, it is down about 0.4%, but there's the record highs that we hit back here on the 28th of October. So a little over a month ago. It's quite a lot of travel. Regained about 80% of that retracement. So to put it all into context, despite everything that's happened, and even with today's drop, we're only 1.25% off the highs. So yeah, sort of interesting. Of course, because the US dollar is looking pretty, here's gold. It's just looking like it's going to go back up and test that record high again. We're back over 4,200. We talked about this last week. We were talking about it here and just sort of saying, well, look, this is called all those rejections here of these that we've seen from those wicks of that level at 40.40. Just saw some buying coming in. That was the key candle a week ago, and then it just shot up, closed above this key level. That was 4,226. So over that critical 4,200 level on Friday, and we've got follow through in Asia. We are trading towards the highs of the session. Maybe money is going into gold, coming out of Bitcoin, coming out of US assets. I wonder if that Japanese. Yeah, I'd heard sort of whispers that Fed Powell might be considering resigning. What's going to happen is that they may announce his replacement. His successor is due to take over in May, whoever that may be. So I think that's the thing that people are waiting for. But be interesting if that does happen. That'll cause a stir. But I can't see it. I'd be very, very surprised. But more surprising things have happened for sure. Send me a source of that if you come across them. Here's copper. Boom on Friday. Boom today. So we smashed it last through that 522 level. This was the 50% tariff imposition on imports into the US. We've now retraced more than 2/3 of that. This move through that level is key. There's the next price level in short, straight down, straight up. Last time it was sort of kicking around here. So it looks pretty good for a move back up to 550. Looks very strong, very bullish. Of all the charts we've looked at, it's copper and gold that are looking good. Oil is looking, we've got some buying coming back into this a little bit today. It's still a downward trend channel. Still wouldn't surprise me to test these 4-year lows here. And we've already talked about Bitcoin. Let's have a look at some crosses here. It's a really significant move on the USD. It's a strength in the yen. I wonder whether the OJ guy's Widow's gonna announce something kooky or signal hard that there may be a rate rise next time they have that. Very interesting. Anyway, we're going to move to 155.84, which looks like a key level. Very long candle in this last hour. So lots of choppiness going on this morning, but interesting place to be. But that weakness in the USD, you can see in the Euro USD as well on the daily chart. That move on the Euro above 116 looks technically important. Pop that on an hourly chart, and you can see there's the level to keep an eye on at 116.10. That was from Thursday, and then Friday test it again. We've tested it already this morning, but failed to hold it. Reach of that level, and you can see what I'm thinking in terms of a move to the upside. That's quite a clear chart of the day. Candidate for sure. As for the Aussie USD, I'm not really enthralled about this, but it does have potential again to shoot higher. It just doesn't look quite as compelling as the it's not bad, is it? I just think it might get stuck around the 65.75, which would only be around about 17 pips to the upside. At best, maybe 20. So I think the upside on this is possibly slightly limited. We'll leave those lines on. We'll check in on it possibly later. But if we look at the Aussie yen, I don't know if it's always ready to tick over. The Aussie is quite strong. It's worth looking at the GB pound yen. No, again, it seems to be the USD that's getting the belting. If we look at this is a daily chart on the GB pound yen. I'm not really interested unless it breaches 205.82. You can see it's actually tested it today. Almost. But no, I'm telling you what, I'm going to plant my flag in Euro USD, multi time frame level to keep an eye on at 116.10. And I think that's probably a 22 pip, fairly easy grab. Obviously being patient to see it go through that is good. Typical Monday morning really for FX. Let's check out some ASX stocks. Where are my ASX stocks going? Okay. Right. Okay, let's do this then. As I said, the SX looking a little, there's some awful stocks there. We'll have to come back and look at light because we've been talking about this stock for ages and just keeps them belting higher. Star Group, I haven't looked at those for a long time. Let's Strike Energy, nah. S32 was looking really positive last week in the materials space. A bit early on this one, but watch for 328. If we do breach that, that's a quite an important level. 100 MA on the weekly chart. Domino's Pizza. After this retracement, we're setting up again for a potential trend continuation. Looking for a move over 23, really. Again, very premature on that. Webjet is having a good day. On the back of a really strong move back over 200 MA. I quite like this chart. 490. Now they split, didn't they? Sorry, so there's one that's Webjet, and then there's Web Travel Group. So Webjet split up. Nice potential move to 490. Then maybe looking around this 580, 550. 550 would be a stretch. That was the high of that candle, I think, just about. What? Let's just, there we go. What's the high on that? 547, yeah, so 550 is the high, but I think that's For a medium-term hold, that maybe is worth a look at, but I suspect it might get stuck around this 520 level. It'd be hard to find one. Guzman Gones, Goodman Group. Where's GYG? Goodman Group, a nice return, a nice bounce. Almost looks a little bottomy if you're. Yeah, that's a nice move up, possibly a move up of a 30.55. Zero looks as though it's recovering. I think this maybe is a stock at value. I'm going to leave that on there because I quite like that. I think that might be one that it's really worth a look at. The real estate sector seems to be doing okay today. Northern Resources. That's a good move for Northern Star. Where's this contextually? Yeah, that's all-time highs for Northern Star. Very strong. Right, so what we've got is so this is the high close previously. It had 1, 2, 3 attempts at this, pushed through it on Friday, follow through today. I'd really like to see a move above this level here, which is the high from Thursday at 27.57. I'll be keeping an eye on that, no doubt. It's a new EAM testing. Right, okay. I'm not seeing anything that's really belting me with any sort of. Luca looks there. It's lithium stocks are struggling again today. Uranium stocks struggling. NXT looked interesting. There's a potential bounce candidate, but that's not happening yet. West African Resources, I think these guys are into gold. Not looking too bad. And Evolution Mine. Well, Evolution Mine down in a market where let's have a look at Flight Centre. We had a look at Webjet. Oh, that was a good call. So Flight Centre looking interesting at back over its 200 MA, back over 1390. Weak context, really good potential move. I'm going to make this my chart of the day. Potential move up to 1564. There you go. Webjet chart of the day. If it breaches, let's say $14, nice round number. Let's stick there. As for the US, really difficult to call because it was an odd week. We're checking on our rare earths ETF, and that's still looking good for a move back up to 82. Still like that. The fact that we breached this previous closing high from the 19th of November, we closed over at the end of the week. Looks as though that could push up towards the 82. That's still a really, really good return for an ETF, around about 8%. So still really like that a lot. The airlines pulled back a little bit on that sort of Boeing news. Is it Boeing who had to? The Airbus that had to come back. We've just been talking about this stock again and again, and yet more highs on this. LITE on the Nasdaq just continuing to pile higher. Maybe time for the banks to have a bit more buy-in as well. Here's JP Morgan as an example. Potential retest of 316. That's sort of interesting. And Carnival were the other ones we were talking about. Just keep an eye in on Carnival. It's not quite there yet where we'll jump up and down, but it does look as though it's found a bottom. We're just waiting for it to breach that 200 MA. Quick look at Robinhood, which flew last week. Yeah, that's heading back up to 150. Ultimately, nice. If you a broker stock, that's a good place to be. And Micron, we also talked about, but that hasn't had enough bounce yet to make it attractive. Nvidia's still not compelling yet. And Tesla looks stuck, doesn't it? Looks sort of stuck in this range here, but that's actually not a bad move, actually. If we look at last week, it actually moved quite well. So we talked about this level last week being quite important. We thought it might get caught up in here. I still think it might get caught up in here. Maybe this 437 or so. If we look for how far it's got to move to its record, 8.69%. Maybe not a bad time. There is evidence of buying. There is evidence of support. Maybe not a bad time to accumulate a little Tesla for a longer term hold. AMD, let's have a check out on AMD. Nice reversal on AMD. Double bottom. Yep, I might make AMD my chart of the day. I think this is a nice move, potentially up to around about this 230 level. You can see there's going to be a little traffic, maybe around about 233. So AMD is my US chart of the day. For that sort of move there, and then you can see what shape the world is. It's around about a 7.5%. Okay, let me just raise rate of price economy was forecast. Interesting. Let's just see what impact that has had on. Thank you very much for keeping an eye on that, Rob. Really appreciate it. Let's have a look and see what that's done to yen crosses. Yeah, so yen crosses could be the way, could be the place to be. You'd have to be. There's a 30-minute, the 50 minutes. Still quite choppy, but nevertheless looks sort of interesting. We have breached a potential support on the 30-minute chart at that level there. Let's look at the daily. That could take us down to 154.77. So around about another, what's that, 18, almost 90 pips. Yeah, there's down about another 0.1% on. So let's just have a look at euro. So this is all drifting without being compelling. Look as though, but there is potential. Not that line there. There is a potential line of interest here around about 180, 60. But again, maybe only 20, 30 pips in this. So there you go. Thank you for that, Rob. Really, a really great share, mate. What was that? That was about 40 minutes ago. Yeah, it already sort of. So I think most of that was planned in. Probably FX Street was a little delayed in getting that up there. I think markets have already responded a little bit to that. Right then, guys and girls, we'll see you later. See some of you, yeah, guys, tonight. Watch out for what's happening this week. And most importantly, take care. Enjoy your Tuesday, Monday, and your Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday as well. Have a wonderful week ahead. We shall catch you. Very soon. Of course, you know where I am if you want to get in touch or any of that sort of stuff. Always pleased to hear from you. Anyway, take care, you guys. Also catch you very soon. See you later.